Hello, my name is Amanda Baughan, and I'm presenting Someone is Wrong on the Internet, Having Hard Conversations in Online Spaces. So we got the title for our paper from this XKCD comic in which someone is typing furiously on a computer, saying to someone off screen that they can't go to bed, they're doing something important, which is explained by someone being wrong on the internet. And it gives the impression that they're just furiously typing. I love this. I think it's so illustrative of how online arguments can really suck us in, often to our detriment. This person should probably go to sleep. And they can have very negative consequences for people. People can become unfriended, people can end relationships, people can lose their jobs, all because of things that they post online when they're angry. So me and my co-authors were really curious, is there a way for people to have hard conversations online without them becoming overly negatively impacting to their relationships? Because we want people to be honest, but we don't want things to become inflammatory like they so often do. So with that, we conducted a mixed methods investigation with 257 participants. We conducted interviews in which we asked people about how the design of current platforms impacted their experiences arguing on them, as well as their ideas for novel designs that could help users when they're engaged in an online argument. We did a survey to help further quantify some of the themes from the interview. And then based on those novel designs from the interviews, we developed a taxonomy of 12 different design interventions that could help in online arguments. I won't be able to get into great detail on those today, but I will incorporate as much detail as possible as I talk about some of the cross-cutting positives and benefits users perceived in response to those different categories. So with the results, first I want to talk high level about something I think is really exciting for this research area, talk a little bit about the different design features that people said helped or hurt during online arguments, and then talk about those cross-cutting patterns of pros and cons. So first, I'm really excited that it seemed that people have a hunger for hard conversations online. 68% of our interviewees said that they regularly use a platform or they want to discuss topics that they currently avoid. And I think that as long as we are scaffolding users' behavior online, there's an opportunity for us to empower them to have the conversations they want to have without them becoming these inflammatory comment wars that we so often see today. So I'm very excited that users still are open to the idea of having difficult conversations online. To talk a bit about current platforms, people thought that being anonymous or having ephemeral content or content that disappears makes it easier to initiate hard conversations. So we saw this on places like Reddit, Tumblr, Snapchat, sometimes on Twitter. People were saying that these were places where it felt safest to engage in more controversial conversations. But even in these scenarios, people said that what they were posting could still be traced back to their real life identity. People could still take a screenshot. So it wasn't a perfect solution for this problem and question they had around, like, how can I feel safest to engage online? I also think it's interesting that this changed depending on what stage of the argument they were in. So as people were moving towards resolving arguments, this did not apply anymore, and people were more often trying to use platforms that incorporated more social cues or meeting up offline to resolve these conversations. So next, I want to talk about some cross-cutting concerns and benefits of the various novel designs. The first one is dilution of intent. Anytime that we introduced a way to kind of scaffold a conversation between two users, it was not very well received for the reason that people basically said, I am already trying to be honest and in a delicate situation. Introducing this scaffolding is making it so it appears less honest, which is not a good thing. Another thing people were concerned about was the potential for backfire. So one of the design interventions introduced a timeout and enforced turn taking between participants. And people thought, if someone is really angry, this could just make them even more inflamed because they're not able to get out everything that they're wanting to say. And then people were also concerned about some of the data collection we wanted to do to help surface commonality between participants as being way too intrusive. So some of our interventions would ask people for their mood, more information on their background, or even their heart rate, so that we could see how people were feeling over the course of the conversation. And people thought it was really creepy and they did not like it. And then in terms of benefits, people really liked when designs afforded them more privacy. So in one design intervention called channel switching, we had a button on a comment thread where people who were talking in the comments could easily toggle over to direct messaging instead of chatting in the comments. And people thought that was great because it would save embarrassment for the people who might be in an argument in the comments, and it would also save people who were not involved from being annoyed from having to see that argument taking place when it didn't concern them. Similarly, people liked when the design interventions had real life inspiration. So again, to use channel switching, we often would think that of a best practice as being not to engage in a disagreement openly where lots of people are looking at us, but instead to pull someone to the side or wait until we're in private to have that conversation. So people across the board liked when designs replicated those real life best practices we might take to have a difficult conversation. And then people were also excited about being empowered to shape the content they were consuming and the content in their communities. So for instance, there was an intervention called Democracy where people could specifically flag constructive comments that might not be the most popular opinion, but were very constructive and adding to the discourse in a way that they felt was meaningful. So to end with some of the implications of this work. First, users' needs are fluid and they change over the course of time. Similar to how anonymity and ephemerality helped to initiate difficult conversations, or rather different from that, at the end of a conversation or when people were looking to resolve, that was no longer relevant to them. People then wanted to incorporate as much social cues as possible. They wanted to see, is my friend online? Have they read my message? Can I do a phone call? Can I do a video call? Can we meet offline? So there was definitely a pipeline from less social cues to alleviate anxiety to more social cues to make sure we're really hearing each other. Vulnerability. People really wanted to be able to surface nonverbal cues without it becoming intrusive or creepy. In our case, it seems like the interventions that we were trying didn't quite hit the mark. People thought they would be too intrusive, but there is still a desire users have to be able to incorporate that feedback with each other and to have that vulnerable exchange online. And lastly, I want to end with this idea of interpersonal design, in which we center users' relationships in addition to, or potentially even instead of, individuals. Similar to how in couples therapy, it's the relationship that is the client, not the individual. I think that this shift from a user experience to a relational experience could be really beneficial for helping people to have these difficult conversations online more effectively. And thank you so much for listening. Feel free to connect with me at the conference. My email is here. You can follow me on Twitter. It's great. I tweet about coffee and how much I love Seattle. And I really look forward to connecting. Thank you so much for listening.